Modi government has emphasized that it will not allow India's defense requirement to be dictated by any other country, referring to the US and Trump. Ahead of the Prime Minister Modi of India, the first ever informal summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday at Sochi. Amid the US sanctions on the Russian defense firm that could impact the defense sales to India. While India is lobbying both with Trump administration as well as the US Congress and seeking exceptions for defense purchases from Russia to safeguard its requirements. Delhi is of opinion that Moscow is an old, tested, and the deep-rooted partner that safeguards India's national security and defense interests for decades. Persons familiar with the development indicated to Economic Times. Also, he said, the underlying point is that the fact that Russia is reliable and trusted defense partner. The issue of the sanction as a tool of international politics will be a key item on the agenda of the discussions when Modi meets Putin one-on-one for close to 6 hours on Monday in Black Sea resort town of Sochi. Several ongoing developments in the geopolitics, including the fate of Iran nuclear deal, India's role in Chabahar port, the connectivity via the Iran-Afghanistan situations, and some key items of the agenda of the dialogue. Moscow has given Delhi the assurance that it will not allow act against its security interests to any partnership with Pakistan. That is one of the persons quoted above amid the reports of growing Russia-Pakistan partnership. Russia on its part appreciated India's position on the chemical attack in the UK and Syria. The Indian point on this matter is clear that it is important to establish the fact. Modi-Putin informal summit should have also be viewed in the context of the Indian Prime Minister dialogue with the various world leaders and major powerful including the Chinese President, German Chancellor, British PM and the French Presidents. The visit should also be viewed in the context of meetings between the world leaders and Putin. While the German Chancellor is meeting Putin on Friday, the French President and the Japanese Prime Minister will travel to St. Petersburg for the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum in the near future. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe visits to Russia was among the various issues that was discussed during the 30-minute phone call between him and the Modi on Wednesday. The two leaders also discussed the Wuhan Summit, role of the China in the geopolitics and the Indo-Pacific contracts. While the international and the region developments will dominate Modi-Putin summit, including agenda for the forthcoming SCO or the BRICS summit, besides India's inclusion in the Eurasian Economic Union. The bilateral issues will not be left untouched, includes the defense ties, the counter-terrorism, cybersecurity, cooperation and respective domestic agenda. It is understood that the PM will seek to incorporate some of the President Putin's more domestic economic agenda into India's economic requirement in the startup and the energy sector. India and Russia are engaged in the third country energy cooperation, the nuclear energy in the Bangladesh, and the third country cooperation could be also on the informal and the flexible agenda of Sochi Summit. This summit, ahead of Indo-Russian formal summit scheduled in India in October, will not result in any documents. So what do you think of India giving a biggest warning to US that it should not dictate or interfere into India's relationship with Russia to buy any defense deals or defense warfare? Can Modi really pull this off, or Modi is afraid of the US sanctions? China's mighty strategic shadow hangs over an accord signed by India and France on Saturday, aimed at stepping up the military cooperation in the Indian Ocean. Under the deal signed by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India and the President of France Emmanuel Macron, each country will open its naval bases to warships. China's territorial ambitions in the South China Sea already worried world powers, and its move into the vast Indian Ocean stretching from the Suez Canal to the Malacca Strait has heightened the concern. Modi and Macron are particularly anxious as China extended its military presence by opening a naval base in the Eastern African nation of Djibouti last year. Beijing is also building up its trading network, so-called the One Belt One Road Initiative or the Belt and Road Initiative, which involves many of the Asian and the African nations that line the Indian Ocean. It has built a port in Pakistan border, taken a 99-year lease in Sri Lanka's Hambantota port, and bought a number of tiny islands in the Maldives. All of this has alarmed India, which sits at the heart of the Indian Ocean region. New Delhi experts see the Chinese company's investment in the asset ranging from airports to the Bangladesh Stock Exchange as Beijing is a Trojan horse. They essentially work at the behest of the state, and all of their investments are actually not commercial investments, but strategic investments, and they are meant to serve as the geopolitical purpose, said Abhijit Singh, a New Delhi-based think tank. Modi made clear when he came to power in 2014 that boosting India's influence in its immediate neighborhood was a strategic priority. India has stepped up its patrols in Sunda Strait, in the eastern Indian Ocean and Persian Gulf, while boosting its maritime surveillance capability around the Andaman and Nicobar Islands of Myanmar, where Chinese battleships and submarines have increasingly been on patrol. The Reunion Islands is in the turn of key of French territory in the Indian Ocean, and Paris also has an extensive Pacific interest. We have a strong maritime power, a big navy with our nuclear submarines, Macron said in an interview with Indian television broadcast on Friday. France is very active in this region, to the present's collective security, and for to more, India is one of their critical partners to preserve the stability in the whole region. China strongly denies any territorial motive against India despite its huge investments and military moves. The two countries are partners in development, not rivals, said the Foreign Minister of China. Louis Zhonghe, a specialist at the Shanghai Institute of International Studies, told the AFP that India was using China's threat to extend its own military power. Some international experts have doubt about Modi's response to China in the Indian Ocean and elsewhere. On a regional level, the Modi government has not proposed a convenient or convincing alternative to the new Silk Road proposed by Chinese leader Xi Jinping. But the country is growing, deploying submarines, and situations could quickly change to India's disadvantage. India just does not have the same financial and administrative strength as China, said Isabelle Saint-Mazat, a South Asia specialist at the Paris 8th University Institute of Geopolitics. So what do you think of India's growing maritime surveillance and growing up its Indian naval bases around the Indian Ocean, from getting Singapore, Oman, and from Mauritius and now to French Islands? Is India growing stronger in the Indian Ocean, or India is losing to Chinese patrols and naval bases? In New Delhi, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu begins a 6-day visit to India on Sunday, hoping to boost the trade ties and iron out of difference arising from New Delhi's decision to scrap a defense deal, officials from both sides said. Israel's state-owned defense contractor Rafael announced on January 3rd that India had cancelled $500 million order to buy its Spike anti-tank guided missiles. Indian media said Delhi would instead opt for a homemade anti-tank missiles. If there is a problem, it can, it should, and it will be solved, said Daniel Karmon, an Israel ambassador to India, referring to the cancellation of the defense deals. India is Israel's biggest arms market, buying around $1 billion worth of weapons every year. Despite the cancellation of missiles deal, Defense Minister said this month it had cleared a plan worth of $72 million to buy 131 Barak surface-to-air missiles built by Rafael. The two countries have grown closer since Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister of India in 2014, widening the commercial cooperation beyond other outstanding defense ties. Netanyahu will be accompanied by 130-member delegations drawn from the cyber and the agriculture sector, as well as from the defense. As well as New Delhi, they will also visit Mumbai and Modi's home state of Gujarat. The intention of the Prime Minister of India and the whole delegation is to boost trade, investment and tourism between both countries, said Gilad Kogan, the Deputy Director General for Asia and the Pacific in the Israel Foreign Ministry. The deals for the gas and the oil corporations, cyber security and agricultural projects on the agenda while the meeting of the Israel Prime Minister. The trip comes about a half year after Modi became the first sitting Prime Minister of India visiting Israel, On the trip, Modi did not travel to the occupied West Bank to meet the Palestinian leaders, as the visiting leaders of India usually do. However, India was among the more than 120 countries last month to vote in favor of a resolution calling for the United States to drop its recent recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. The status of Jerusalem is one of the thorniest obstacles to the peace deals between Israel and the Palestinians. Cameron said India's oath against Israel at the UN General Assembly on the Jerusalem issue would not be affected by the bilateral ties. The vote at the UN is important, but it will not matter the big picture of India-Israel relationship, he said. The foreign policy expert in New Delhi said Mr. Modi had made significant changes in the diplomatic and the strategic ties with Israel, while at the same time retaining links with Palestinian leaders Mahmoud Abbas. Before Modi visited Israel in 2017 July, he hosted Abbas in India and offered help in the health and information technology. But it was a low-key profile meeting of India and Palestine. So what do you think of India's economic slowdown and agriculture slowdown because of Modi being the Prime Minister of India and having only the defense ties going up and up in the budget and to the connections and the making of defense companies in India? Will the Israeli and Indian Prime Minister will go by the dictatorship as they do now? Post your comments below, and if you like this video, please give a thumbs up and follow us on social networks and subscribe to our channel. And thanks for watching. This is WEC Daily. Think big, think different. Bye.